Responsible AI, getting back to your second question, is not only about data, but ethics plays in there as well. So ethics is a part of responsible AI. But that's more a philosophical question quite often, because what is ethics? Yeah. People always say, oh, that's not ethical. And then I ask them, so what is ethics to you? Yeah, because it means different things to different people. But it's just like something that we decide as humans. There's no clear rules. There's not like we Germans like the book, the list, this is ethical and this is not. But we have to make sense of what's happening out there, yeah, by discussing, by talking to each other, by deciding amongst ourselves as humans on what we think is okay to do and what is not okay to do. It's about our values as well, yeah, and like responsible it comprises a lot of other things as well, including data compliance, data safety, security, like making sure that we all act also within standards and frameworks. Yeah. So it's kind of like the bigger picture above it. So ethics is not responsible AI. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for leading us into the topic right away. I think that was very helpful to understand again, responsible AI, the big umbrella, and then in there we have ethics that can be, taken different perspectives on. It can be a very, let's say, subjective way of understanding. It really plays to respective laws, frameworks, values, and then there's other things like data compliance. That's super helpful. Um, I think when we talk about, um, it would be nice to have a book as a German. It's all in there. This is a great moment to segue over to Benita, because Benita actually wrote a book, and she was, I feel, one of the earlier writers who was aiming to make sense of what's going on in terms of ethics, ethical best practices, and the duty of care. And this is also the name of the book. I really like that it is grounded in research. And Benita, when you talk about ethics, what do coaches out there maybe need to understand, just from a terminology or from a definition point of view, in order to have this understanding and this ability to communicate with each other, no matter if we're from ICF, from EMCC, from AC, or from no coaching body, in terms of our standards and frameworks?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Levin. And I think for those listening in, and thank you for the plug on the book. And again, we're not commercial in here at all. But the book it is around it's around the human element when we think about duty of care in coaching. The research was conducted on that human to human level. And what came out on the research is absolutely, I think, to Rebecca's point in, being able to have a book and having a manual and having something that tells us, what is all of the answers to all of this. We just don't have that. We have the law, and we can have confidence when we look across the world in most, most common law jurisdictions. We can see that there is a similarity, and there's a thread that runs through fundamentally when we think about duty of care, and there's being for us not to cause foreseeable harm. So we can have confidence in the literature that translates pretty much across the world. We then have our coaching bodies, be that EMCC, ICF, AC, Apex, whoever it may be, and we have the codes of ethics, which will act as and I sort of describe them as scaffolding that is there. They're not guided by, well, they are guided by law, yet they're not legal. So, but they're important, because should a claim be brought against a practitioner, then one of the first things we do in the coaching bodies is we go to the code of ethics to see has it been breached. So we have those two parts. What the research showed, other than that, is pretty much up to the practitioners to figure it out. And then I think to Rebecca's point, what does it mean in practice? It very much comes from our values, comes from our beliefs, comes from our lived experience. It comes from how we see the world. So the research that I did, it was the first one, and it was relatively recently, it's only a few years ago, the first one to shine the spotlight on duty of care in coaching. And it astounded me really that we didn't have any empirical research on it. Now, what concerns me, and this is where I think that having these types of conversations is so important. If we haven't defined it yet on the human to human level, are we ready as practitioners to be looking at bringing in additional technologies into our practice if perhaps as practitioners we don't really know what is it that I'm doing? So I think that this is I think this is the important point in how do we help equip individuals, and this is why the article was a real pleasure to co-create together, with looking at what are some of the questions that we can gift our fellow practitioners to help them make those educated choices, because the field is moving at such a rate, theory and research is never going to be able to keep up. So it's up to us to do some of that figuring out for ourselves. So that's what if that helps at all in terms of adding into that, there is just this huge degrees of complexity, and now where we're bringing in additional pieces, my question to practitioners is what's their sense making and understanding and the decision making of the tools that they are choosing to bring in, and for them to really start to take that look at themselves.